Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com.
The only shooting stick with one-handed trigger pull adjustments has a new way to keep you at the top of your game. The Trigger Stick Apex. Built for sturdy support that adapts to unforgiving terrain with easy adjustments to make your big shots. With our DuraSteady 3-piece carbon leg design and interchangeable rock-solid clamp, nothing tops the Apex. The Trigger Stick Apex, only from Primrose.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. On this episode, we are going to talk about what to wear in the summertime. Summertime fly fishing, head to toe. Now, of course, this is my personal preference and experience, and I'm going to give you the reasons why. I'm going to also give you a couple of different options that might suit you or your fishing better. But really what this comes down to is wet wading in hot weather. I'm going to talk a little bit about why you might not want to wet wade here in a minute, but I'm just going to talk a little bit in my experience about what I have found works the best for hot weather wet wading. So of course, wet wading means wading without waders. You wear waders to stay dry. Wet wading means you're going to get wet. So let's start at the top and work our way down to the bottom, because the top is going to be easy. Well, I really am a big fan of a baseball cap. In the summertime, I will wear a wide brim hat. I've had a few over the years. I had a Tilly hat, one of those authentic, I think they're from New Zealand or Australia or somewhere, but they're a wide brim hat, and they're cool because, like a lot of cheaper versions of these hats, they had snaps on the side, kind of by your temples, so you could fold up one side of the brim. So like if you were fishing and the sun was on your left, and you wanted to maybe have a little bit more airflow, you could snap up the brim on the right hand side, and both, as the sun goes down, because sometimes you don't want that extra shade, but when the sun is being incredibly oppressive, it's nice to have that wraparound protection. That also protects you a little bit from bugs and give you a little bit more coverage for bug spray. So that's one of the things I do regardless of what kind of cap I'm wearing. And again, usually I wear the same baseball cap all year round. I have a Chicago Bears hat that was orange and now is kind of tan and dirty. But I will just apply more and more permethrin to that hat to ward off mosquitoes, ticks, and anything else that might be biting my ears or my hairline or anything like that. It keeps the ticks from crawling up into your hair from under your hat using, again, permethrin, picaridin, and then there's some all-natural stuff like eucalyptus and peppermint. And I talked about that in a few episodes back, bug spray choices for fly fishing. And that actually is a really important thing, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If you don't know what kind of bug spray to buy to protect your gear, go and listen to that podcast. I think it's called Buying Choices, and I talk about rods, bug spray, and something else. But if you have a wide brim hat, you can spray the underside of that, and it offers you more protection or wider radius around your head for keeping the bugs off. So I do that with my regular baseball hat, and if I have a wide brim hat, I do that also. Currently these days, if I do fish in a wide brim hat, it is a straw cowboy hat that I bought down in Guatemala, and it looks pretty rad. So that is my headwear choice, and so it not only keeps the sun out of your eyes and off the back of your neck, that's the nice thing about having a wide brim hat, but it also is going to provide that bug protection, and this is really nice if you're out fishing for smallmouth or in the salt, or if you're throwing bigger poppers for whatever you're fishing for. Having that wide brim can protect you a little bit more from a fly or a line whacking in the back of the head or the ear. That's actually, I started wearing a wide brim hat for the very first time when I was guiding years ago, because I had a couple of big heavy streamers for smallmouth, not for stripers, for smallmouth, whack me in the back of the head. Thankfully I didn't get hooked, but that just made me think, you know what, as I'm teaching people to cast and I'm standing very close to them, I'm going to afford myself as much protection as possible. So if you have a favorite baseball cap, you might be totally fine wearing that, and I am, but every once in a while I do bust out the hat that has the wide brim, especially when I'm going to be in open water and the sun's going to be blazing down. The alternative for that is wearing a shirt with a collar on it, and I'll talk about that in a second, but that can be an alternative for you, is wearing a shirt that has a collar on it and popping it up to cover the back of your neck. Because really, and this is one of the themes for the top half of your body, cover yourself up. Sunscreen's great. I just don't like sunscreen. So when we talk about shirts, I'll mention that, but anytime you can cover yourself up, you're going to be in good shape. I know buffs, get a bad rap on social media because I think people wear them sometimes just to look cool. But honestly, I'll wear them when I'm out on the blue water, when there's a ton of insects going on here in freshwater, just because there's so much glare and there's so much heat and there's even wind. I mean, it protects your lips after a day of being out on the water, especially if you're in a boat and you're moving or it's windy out. So I know that's kind of moving away from your hat, but it's the same principle. Coverage is good. It protects you from bugs. It protects you from sun, and both of those things are not good at the end of the day, and they're cumulative effects of being exposed to too many bugs, and too much sun is certainly not good also. All right, so moving down the body to the face, sunglasses. I had a podcast recently about sunglasses that you choose, and one of the big things that I pick is coverage, and it's not just what's right in front of you, because it is fantastic to have a big lens so that as your eyes move left to right in your eye sockets, you can see everything in your field of vision through those polarized lenses. However, you also want to reduce glare coming in from the sides. So my primary pair of fishing glasses these days is a Costa Del Mar Fantail Pro. And those are great because they have a thicker arm that connects to the frames and the lenses. So it blocks out some of that light. Additionally, they kind of wrap around. So they're not super wrap around like, early 90s style sunglasses, but they do offer some wraparound protection to stop some of that light coming in from the sides if you are fishing away from the sun, or they having it bounce off the water and reflect up underneath your sunglasses and into your eyes. That kind of stuff, not only is it going to limit your vision, but it's also going to cause eye fatigue, and you're going to lose that visual acuity as the day goes on. So having a nice pair of lenses that cuts out the glare is great year-round, and it's perfect during the snow, but it's great in the summertime when that sun is out so long and it is so high overhead that it is going to be bouncing off the water in front of you and coming into your field of vision at all sorts of crazy angles. So I would suggest a pair of glasses that has thick sides, or those even little moldable sides that you can slide onto the edge of your sunglasses if you have maybe like a aviator style or something like that. And they look pretty cool. Find a nice little leather pair. Some of the leather companies that I've written for and done some work with, I don't think anybody makes those. That might be a good idea to put a call in, see if anybody wants to make some custom side shields for sunglasses, because they're very functional, and they might look a little goofy, but really, if you're out doing outdoor stuff, I mean, that's what looks cool, is having something functional. Style is very much secondary, but having something that is boutique but also looks cool might be worth checking out. So hey, maybe you'll hear something about that here in the near future. All right, so moving down, again, I mentioned buffs earlier. I don't wear buffs all the time. I wear them if, again, I'm on open water or if there's a lot of bugs, and again, I can treat those. I don't like putting bug spray on my skin if I can avoid it. So usually it's just on my hat and it's on the ankles of my pants if I'm not wading, if I'm walking through the woods or something like that. But if the bugs are crazy, I've had times where I cannot fish. They're so bad. I remember one summer night finishing on the Battenkill in Vermont, where it was painful. The volume of mosquito bites I was having was painful, and I had to leave the water and wait to come back in the morning because there was just so many. It might have been the worst experience I've ever had with bugs in my entire life. And a buff with some sun protection, but also some bug spray, can be very, very helpful if you're someplace where there's no breeze and there's a lot of bugs. Moving down, shirts. This might sound silly, or you might totally get what I'm saying, but I love long sleeve, lightweight shirts in the summertime. I think that they are fantastic for a few reasons. One, I get hotter with the sun on my skin than I do with a long sleeve shirt on in the heat. Does that make sense? So I get hotter with the sun beating down on my exposed skin, even with sunscreen on. And I even feel, like if it's a certain types of sunscreen, I feel like that almost amplifies the heat because you have this kind of sticky layer on top of you. So I would much rather have SPF rated long sleeve, lightweight shirts that have a little bit of extra length in the sleeve so they kind of go down over the top of my hand and provide me as much coverage as possible. Now, sleeves and hems that are made of a lightweight, primarily nylon or polyester fabric, even with a cotton blend, they're going to dry incredibly quickly. They are not going to stay wet if you have to stick your arm underwater. And again, if you're wet wading or you're fishing in the summer, being a little bit damp is not the worst thing in the world. And so many of these contemporary fabrics are going to do just a great job. So a couple of shirts that I like wearing, and these are just some name brands. I like the Orvis technical tops. There's just the long sleeves. They have zip up, like quarter zip. They have crew neck, and then they have the hooded. And the hooded is awesome because that kind of circles back to some stuff I've mentioned already regarding having that coverage for your ears and for the back of your neck. And a nice thing about those two is when they're so lightweight and so kind of airy and breathable, you don't feel like there's something interfering with your ability to hear. I've talked about that before on different podcasts about just being able to locate what's around you, whether it be a rise or whether it be moving through the woods or things like that. And so these incredibly lightweight hoodies are great for that. But I also have some traditional like Columbia PFG style shirts, and I like those a lot as well, especially because a couple of them have a collar that doesn't just pop once, but then it pops twice, so it almost can tuck into the back of your ball cap. It looks incredibly dorky, but when you're on the water, who cares? And those are nice too because they have lots of pockets. You can unbutton them a couple buttons if you want to get a little more airflow. You can roll up the sleeves, and they have those little tabs to button them after you've been on the water or once the sun starts to go down. But again, you get that bug protection, you get that sun protection, and in my opinion, for my body, for the way that I experience the outdoors, I would rather be a little bit warm because of long sleeves than having the sun beating down on me. So that's my top preference. But that being said, if you're wet wading in like here in New England in late July and early August of this year, it's been getting down to the 60s at nighttime. So chances are the water's going to be warm and you're going to be warm from being outside. And I feel like your body kind of acclimates to the weather regardless of if it's in the high 60s or in the kind of like low 90s when you're in the summertime. But having a fleece vest on hand can make it so that you're not thinking about how you're a little bit chilly. So just having that in the back of the car. The same thing with a lightweight rain layer. Again, getting wet and getting, cooled off is not the worst thing in the world, but you don't want to be soaked to the bone necessarily. And if you do, you want to protect yourself and your gear as much as you can. So a lightweight fleece vest and a lightweight rain jacket in the car is a great option, kind of a break glass in case of emergency situation. I always have those on hand, even in the warmest weather, because it was 90 a couple days ago and it's 65 outside right now. So it's nice to have those things on hand. All right, moving down. Pants. I fished in shorts for years and years and years, and I still do if I'm hiking a long way, or one of the things I like to do is trail run up into the mountains to fish for brook trout or anything like that. But more and more I am wearing lightweight, breathable pants for the reason of ticks. I absolutely hate those little buggers. They are the worst in the world. I've had Lyme disease before. It is not fun. I've said it, again, from everything I've heard from so many other illnesses and what I've experienced with Lyme disease, I would take a lot of other things before I took Lyme disease again. So I wear pants, and what that does is it simply affords me the protection from the bugs, whether they be ticks crawling up my leg or mosquitoes that are trying to bite me from the knee down. And again, if you're using a lightweight, breathable fabric, they are going to stop getting too hot. It's not going to be a big issue. And additionally, it's going to dry off very, very quickly. So I will wear shorts quite frequently, especially if I'm out in the ocean. Then I will almost always wear shorts. I don't usually wear pants when I'm surf casting in the summertime. But if I'm fishing for brook trout, if I'm fishing for smallmouth bass, then I will have full length pants on. Maybe I still have a couple pairs of zip off pants. Those are like the paragon of fashion, right? But those are nice because if the bottoms are primarily what's wet, you can always zip them off when you hop back in the car. But I just see it as a convenience and one more way to protect me from the sun and from insects. Now, here is the PG part of the podcast. What underwear are you wearing? Because honestly, if you just have cotton boxers or cotton briefs on underneath your lightweight, breathable, high-tech pants, and they get wet, I mean, you're out of luck. Those things are going to take forever to dry, and it's going to be just so uncomfortable. So what I would suggest doing is just go to Target or Walmart or REI, and you can find a pair of lightweight, nylon, breathable, kind of compression style shorts that you can wear. And this does two things. One, if they get wet, they're going to dry off quickly, which means that you're not wet, but you're also not wet in a relatively sensitive area, which is not fun while you're fishing, but it's certainly not fun on the drive home. Secondly, it's going to provide a little bit of protection from that area from bugs, particularly ticks that are wanting to crawl up. If you have something that has a tight waistband and kind of a compression on your legs, then it's going to protect you in that way also from bugs. But that's something I've done so many times. Think, okay, I've got all the right gear, all my really high-end shirts and high-end pants, and just throw on a pair of cotton boxers, and as soon as you wade deeper than your waist, it's like, what's the point? Everything's wet. It's going to stay wet for a really long time. So that's just something to think about as you are planning to go out. Make that investment. They might take some getting used to. They're definitely different than just your normal Monday to Friday undergarments, but it is worthwhile, especially if you're taking the time and money to invest in nicer shirts and pants. You're gonna find that they're great for all sorts of things. If you're out in hot weather, then that's definitely a great comfort that you can have to have closest to you in your most sensitive regions. All right, there you go. Did you think about hearing about that as you tuned into the podcast today? But I'm here to help. All right, moving down. So footwear choices. Wet wading is a lot of fun. It's nice because you're feeling the water. You feel the water when you're in a pair of waders. You feel it pressing against you. You feel its little ebbs and flows as you are in the current. But there's something fun about being in even a cool stream or a cool river on a hot summer day and feeling that water up against your legs. And whether that be in pants, whether it be in shorts, whether you're in a swimsuit, which I guess I should go back a second. I wear a swimsuit a lot too when I'm fishing, especially when I'm fishing in the ocean. A lot of my surf casting is done while my kids are swimming, a couple 100 feet down the beach. And after I catch something, or if I don't catch something, then I'll throw my rod down, I'll swim with them for a while, come back and fish a little bit more. So swim trunks are a great budget wet wading option, and they often have that kind of mesh line on the inside, especially for men. For ladies, I would say it's the same thing. Fish in your swimsuit. If you just want to throw a pair of shorts over top of it or a pair of pants over top of it, then you have that nice quick dry layer on underneath. But you also have the flexibility of fishing or swimming in that if you choose. Anyway, back to wet wading. That's one of the reasons why we enjoy it so much. It's just kind of free, and you can be out there and in the water, which of course means you're going to get wet, which leads to what kind of shoes are you going to be wearing. Now, I've covered this, I feel like ad nauseum, but it's something that I get more questions on than almost anything else, I would say, is my preference for shoes and boots, because I do think that that's one of the things that you should be spending a lot of money on. If you're going to be spending money on anything in fly fishing, rod, line, wading boots, sunglasses. All right, those are the four things I think need the most money from most anglers. Wading boots, they protect your feet, they protect your ankles, they protect your knees, they protect your back in one way, shape, or form. They keep you upright, they keep you dry, they protect the rest of your gear by keeping you upright and keeping you safe. So it all depends on your mobility and where you're fishing. Your mobility, where you're fishing, and I would also say and how long it takes you to get there and how much moving you're planning on doing. So I have two primary pairs of wet wading shoes. One is an ultralight pair of boots from Redington, they're Benchmark boots, and I wear those with a Corker brand sock. And these Corker socks are awesome because they have holes in them that allow water to come in and come out, which if you are wet wading and as soon as you go shin deep and water starts to go into your sock, unless you're wearing like a really form-fitting sock then water's going to get in there, and you don't want that to slosh around. That will lead to, chafing in your foot. It'll also just kind of get soupy and gross, and just like the worst thing to have in your toes for hours and hours and hours on end. So these Corkers ones are awesome because they allow water to move in and out. But those Redington Benchmark boots are ultralight. It kind of feels like wearing a ultralight pair of hiking boots as you fish. Those are great for moving around a lot, having very uneven terrain, and they're just a normal pair of fly fishing boots. The other pair of shoes that I talk about a lot is my Astral Brewer. Now you can buy the Brewer 2.0. They are kayaking shoes, incredibly lightweight. They shed water so fast. They have little kind of a pumping design on the inside, so as you walk, it pushes water out and even smaller sediment. But because of the tongue and the lacing, you're not going to get rocks and gravel in there. Very, very form-fitting around the collar of your ankle, so you're going to be totally safe from all that little debris. And then the water and the sand, the little stuff gets pumped out. Incredibly sticky. The most sticky shoes, wading boots, anything I've ever owned in my entire life are the soles of these Astrals. But they don't have a lot of toe and ankle protection. So they actually have a model called the TR1, and I'm thinking about checking these out only because my toes take a beating, especially when I'm in the surf, when I'm walking and wading the craggy beaches here in New England. And then even after a long day of fishing on the brook trout streams, your toes do get beat up. So the Brewer 2.0 is an awesome shoe. I've used it for years and years. It's starting to show a little bit of wear, but that's because I abuse it in the saltwater. The TR1 has a toe cap on it. And so I'm thinking about maybe making the switch to that, especially for fishing in the salt. But those are great shoes that you can, both the Benchmark boots to a certain degree, but certainly the Brewers, those are shoes that you can walk in to the water, even if it's miles, and be totally comfortable in. Now, socks. Do you wear socks? This is a personal preference thing. If you're going to be wet, like while you're in the water, I think having socks on is totally fine. The issue then is once you are done fishing and you leave the water and you're walking back to your car, if it's a prolonged walk, walking in wet socks, even if they are kind of quick dry socks, if they're saturated from being underwater, is not a lot of fun. So I usually do not wear socks when I wet wade. Either I have a neoprene bootie that my foot is in just by itself inside of a wading boot, or I'm going barefoot inside of like a wading shoe. But there's been times where I have worn a sock, and as long as I'm in the water and I'm not walking on dry land and not having that sock kind of constantly moisturized, then it's totally fine. That happened by accident the last time I went out. I think in my Virginia podcast from a few weeks back I talked about that. But anyway, that's head to toe, from hats all the way down to the soles of your wading boots. That's what I use. Now, I gave a couple of brands out there. I'm loyal to some of these brands, but some of this stuff, if something better came along, I would absolutely give it a shot. Some of these things, like my Costas and my Astrals, I've used so many other different products. I've used these consistently and put them through the paces that, I mean, you're free to send me something and I'll happily try it out. But I feel like those are the best of the best. But and everything else, you can find great quick dry shirts, pants, and underwear/base layers at a place like Target and online, and it's going to provide great sun protection, insect protection, and keep you dry as you fish in the warmest, wettest southern, even, northern, eastern, western summer months that you may encounter. All right, lots of content, lots of stuff I went over there. Definitely shoot me your feedback. If there's something that you think is indispensable in the summertime, then let me know. I guess the last thing I'll mention, and I know I'm kind of going long, is this. Stay tuned for my recommendation at the end of the podcast for my preferred pack for fishing when I'm wet wading in the summertime. There you go. That's a great way to save time. This week on castingacross.com, the first article that appeared was called Fly Fishing Olympics 2021. Fly Fishing Olympics 2021. I wrote an article in 2016 about if fly fishing were to be in the Olympics, what would some of the competitions be? This is a 5 years later take on this and a humorous look at some of the silly things that we do as anglers and how we could turn that into competition, which you might already do with your friends. So check that out. Fly Fishing Olympics 2021. That got a great response. So definitely check that out. And then on Wednesday, Rusty Flybox People. Rusty Flybox People. These are 3 older articles And every one of them has to do with people, both in person and online. And one of these articles is called Not Alone for a Moment. And I think it's just a really good article. It's from maybe 5 years ago. Definitely check that out. Some of my long form stuff, an article that definitely is a candidate for being retooled into just a shorter and updated version. But right now it's definitely worth checking out. This week's recommendation on the podcast, as I just mentioned, it is a pack that I like to wear when I am wet wading and I'm wet wading deep. It is the Inversion Sling from Vitavoo. So I talk about Vitavoo slings all the time. The Inversion Sling is designed to ride high up on your back, and it has a waterproof main compartment. So all of Vitavoo's packs are usually water resistant because of the PVC coated nylon they're constructed with, and the fact that they have usually 2 layers of closure, zipper, and a fold over buckle Velcro system. This one actually has a waterproof zipper and that waterproof a PVC coated nylon. But it's a great pack because it's also built to ride higher on the small of your back, and me being 5'8", 5'8.25" on a good day, it's awesome to have that pack right up between my shoulder blades to keep things dry, even if I have a water resistant pack. This is what I wear when I'm surf casting for stripers with my fly rod. This is what I'll wear if I'm wading deep for smallmouth up here in New England or down the mid-Atlantic. And I know I'm going to be wading a lot deeper because, again, a little bit shorter. But the Inversion Sling retails for about $200, made in the United States of America, by hand, to order. I absolutely love mine. I've got mine in camo, and there's a couple other colorways that are out there that are worth checking out. But it's going to fit anybody and everybody, and it goes on your non-casting shoulder, which I can't believe more people aren't stealing this idea, but I'm glad that they're not, because this is something that Scott at Vitavoo has really emphasized as being a hallmark of the Vitavoo Sling Pack. So definitely check that out. I'll put a link to the Vitavoo Inversion Sling on the show notes for this podcast on castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and leave a review on iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
In Wild Country, rules were not created by man. Don't miss Wild Country, Wednesdays from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Presented by Primos. Speak the language. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment. A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.